Okay, live from Quartzsite. This is the Bob Davis Podcast YouTube channel. This is where I talk about my podcasts and add a little bit more content after I finish a podcast, which is why I have the headphones on. I usually just sit down and do a quick video to talk about a recent podcast I did and the things I talked about. And usually what happens is come up with more stuff because there's always stuff you forget when you do an audio podcast. There's stuff that you forget to put in that podcast, and so then I'll come on and do a YouTube video to talk about the content in that podcast. So it's unique content for YouTube and it's unique content for the audio podcast as well. So it's different content for both mediums. I have the headphones on just so you know I'm talking about a podcast, right? So this particular podcast, podcast 1124, the Bob Davis Podcast, which you can get at iTunes and you can get at Spotify and Google Podcasts, Audible, wherever pretty much you find podcasts, you can find my podcast. So it's there. It has been there for 10 years. So I've been doing podcasting a long time. And I am a nomad, and I'm in Quartzsite, Arizona, which is really the nomad mecca, mainly because of the wonderful weather and because of these campgrounds that we exist in during during the winter. So there's a lot of issues and things I talk about related to nomads, although I don't just talk about that. Mostly what I do is talk about the emotional, if you will, or the psychological processes that we go through as travelers through time and space. I find that to be very, very interesting, and most of the time that's what I talk about. But I do talk about other things. I've had a whole career of talking about lots and lots of things, so I'm not entirely and completely focused on nomad issues. I don't talk about batteries. I don't talk about equipment. I don't do any of that stuff. There's plenty of really great people doing that, Dark Nomad, Campulence Man, and others who talk about equipment and things of that nature. So here in the afternoon, get yourself a cup of coffee or whatever and sit back and do a podcast and then do some video. So this last podcast 1124, relates to it being the end of the year, and at the end of the year are all these lists. Best places to visit in 2024, best stories of 2023, top 5 social media events, top 5 songs, and so forth. And what I want to talk about in this particular YouTube video, and it relates not only to businesses back in the world, but it relates to people out here doing this situation, the nomad life situation, because many of us are looking for some kind of side hustle, if you will, to augment retirement income or augment income of some other source, or actually have income while we are doing what we're doing. I've talked at different times in different videos about I don't know if you'd call it burgeoning, but at least this sort of protozoic, digital community that could arise in the world of digital workers and media workers and various other kinds of businesses running small businesses from the road, which enables people to travel and to have a little bit different lifestyle. And this lifestyle, the nomad lifestyle, is very popular right now. It's very interesting to people who want to break free. And I don't need to belabor that point. I've made it in a number of different videos and podcasts over the years, and we don't really need to talk too much about it. But that's one of the reasons that people are out here, and they're always looking for some way to make money and to have more money, as well as small businesses, or what they are now calling micro businesses, back in the world. I run a micro business. The Bob Davis Podcast is really an artistic business, which operates in a little different frequency from the average small business, and other small businesses that serve small communities or small markets within communities. The reason that I did this podcast was I wanted to let small business people, especially those that I used to network with, and people in that networking platform, to alert them of what I feel is a bad idea for 2024. And I'm going to start by telling a little story. The other day, I was at the Coyote Market here in Quartzsite, and I was buying some meat. It was late in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock, and there weren't very many people in the store, and I was just getting my bacon or whatever it was that I ordered. And I was at the meat counter, and this gentleman that I have never seen before, older guy, never seen before, don't know who he is, don't know his name. He's standing there at the meat counter, and he goes, "Monetized yet?" And I really didn't understand what he was saying, and I really didn't think I heard what he was saying. So I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Have you monetized your YouTube channel yet?" And I didn't know what to say. And I just said, "You're not going to make any money on YouTube." This is the great dream of people who come out here, is that they're going to make a fortune on YouTube. They're going to have a big channel, and they're going to make a lot of money, and they're going to be able to get a new rig, and all these things are going to happen because of the largesse of YouTube. This is not to say that you don't make money or you won't make money with YouTube if your channel's monetized and if you reach a certain number of subscribers and viewers. You know? So when I said you're not going to make money on YouTube, what I was talking about are most of the people that I know that are doing YouTube channels, they struggle to figure out the algorithm, and they're really at a disadvantage for all of the details that you need to know to really make a channel really, really successful. And I would put myself in that same category, because what I'm doing is I'm just using this YouTube channel to promote my podcasts, and I do this, and since I'm in the media business, this is what I do. So it's easy for me to do content and then jump back on here and do even more content in video form, especially with this fabulous landscape that we all go live from and that we all do our videos from. I'll tell you another little story that really sets this in the right particular direction for this little video. In 1929, Joe Kennedy, who was a famous trader on Wall Street, actually a famous insider trading before it was illegal, and one of the main reasons it is illegal is because of Joe Kennedy. One of the main reasons for the establishment of the Securities and Exchange Commission was Joe Kennedy. He famously sold off everything just before the crash in October of 1929. And later they asked him why, and he told this story. We don't know if it's true, but it is a story that, and it is a theme that has been repeated from time to time in different areas of different segments of industry. And I think it's very interesting. I think it's very illustrative of where we are right now. This story was of Kennedy. When they asked him why he sold everything, he said, "When the guy who shines your shoes is giving you tips on stocks, that means the market is peaked." So I would paraphrase Joe Kennedy to say, when the guy in the Coyote Market in Quartzsite, Arizona, with 1,500 residents and a bunch of RV people says, "Have you monetized your YouTube channel?" that suggests to me that we're probably at the top of the trend for YouTube. To that point, there is yet another reason for that, and this is a number of videos which are beginning to surface that say that if you're in small business, if you have a small business, you should do, there's that wonderful word should again, you should do a podcast, and then you should put your podcast on YouTube, because the YouTube algorithms are being tweaked to push out podcasts. So you can do your own marketing. That's a key word and something to remember, because I'm going to tell you the difference between marketing and advertising in a short time. You can do your own marketing, and you won't have to pay for advertising, and your channel will blow up, and you'll have streams of income from YouTube, and you'll have way more business for your small business. Now, I am not the arbiter of what is successful and not successful on YouTube or social media or any other means of getting the word out. But I can tell you that I've had a lot of experience in business, and I've had a lot of experience in quote-unquote marketing. Here's the actual definition of marketing. Marketing is coming up with a good or service, a product or service, after you identify a need in a marketplace. So, for example, if you go into a town where they've just discovered gold and you realize they need pickaxes and shovels and so forth, and you open a hardware store, you can pretty much sell your hardware for any price you want to these prospectors, and you'll make far more money than the prospectors because you're going to sell all of your hardware to prospectors. Well, that actually happened in 1849 during the gold rush. These kinds of hardware dealers popped up during the great expansion of the railroad and all sorts of other times when there was a market for that stuff, and these companies popped up to serve it. Now, sometimes it's more complicated than that, but that is in fact the definition of marketing, not advertising. Advertising is getting the word out or seeding a need in the marketplace, and that's a little bit more complicated. So once you've identified a market, most small businesses do really well by super serving their clients within a product segment or service segment as a small business. Concrete people, mechanics, insurance, maybe even banking services, that type of thing, healthcare services. These are businesses, usually small businesses, that spring up to super serve customers. They become bigger businesses by maximizing profits in a segment and then creating more outlets to serve that same segment in other markets, or by widening their appeal in a marketplace. That's what makes these businesses large. So you have become very effective, let's say, at marketing to, in other words, you found a need and a product to serve that need in a marketplace, and you've become very good at serving and super serving the clients in that segment. And this really occupies most small business people I know. The very first thing that they say is, well, say goodbye to weekends and days off, because you don't get any days off. You're always working. Most people in this country right now are off for the Christmas holidays. If they are salaried employees of companies, more than likely they'll be off in the near future. They'll take a week of vacation. Small business people do not get vacations. We don't get days off. We work holidays, days off, and whatever it takes to super serve the customers. That's the job of a small business person. And most small business people that I know are hard pressed for time. Most of their time is spent running their business. They don't have time to do a lot of other things. So the suggestion now is that, oh, you don't need advertising. You just need to do a podcast and put it up on YouTube. Well, let me tell you, YouTube and podcasting, and I can tell you, I can speak from experience because I've been podcasting for 20 years, almost 20 years. It's a lot of work. You have to come up with a topic, you have to come up with an idea, you have to explore that idea, and you have to be good at talking, and you have to be good on camera. And if you're a small business person, most small business people I know, they might think that they're good on camera, but they're not good on camera. Finally, just want to touch very quickly on this idea that we'll put our headphones on and have the microphones on our face, and that's going to make it a podcast on YouTube. I mean, with or without the headphones, right? It's a podcast. This is what you're doing. You're listening to what I'm saying. Maybe you're watching me. I mean, it's hard to see me with the sun shining on one side of my face, but you're watching what's going on. Maybe you're checking the scenery out and thinking, boy, I wish I was down there. That's a podcast. Or you're listening on an audio to another podcast that I've done, and you're listening while you're working or doing other things. It's audio and video, or audio or video delivered over the internet. That's what podcasting is. It doesn't say that it has to be video. It doesn't say that it has to be audio. I think the reason that algorithms have been adjusted or tweaked with YouTube is because they see an opportunity, as Spotify just laid off 600 employees and is struggling to maintain a profit. I think that iHeart is having the same experience because they're finding out that a strategy of putting up celebrity podcasts is not working. The celebrity podcasts are just not working very well. The celebrity videos are not working very well. And I would say if you're a small business person, especially a micro business person and you've got a certain business and it's producing a certain amount of resources, super serving your clients and finding a way to open another location, let's say, is probably a better strategy for raising more money with your business than spending your time doing YouTube videos and your own social media. The other thing is, if you don't do it right, you can do a lot of damage to your business. One of the things that I was really worried about when I started doing the videos was, God, I hope I don't hurt the podcasts with the video, which is one of the reasons I do different content for YouTube and different content for the audio podcast, because I want them to be separate. The other thing is, I'm doing the old school set the camera up and just talk and no editing, because I don't want to spend a lot of time editing video. I don't want to get into spending a lot of time doing television production, because that is not my business. My business is creating audio podcasts and, trying to mine ideas to talk about, and also reviewing and thinking about the, as I said, emotional and psychological processes that we nomads go through doing what we do. I'm not in the business of trying to become, quote unquote, an influencer, or trying to grow my concrete business into a much larger business by going on YouTube and doing videos. I think that's a risky strategy because of the time that is spent. Suddenly you're not out trying to make sure that Larry and Susan are at the job site with your lawn business or your concrete business, because you're too busy editing videotape, or your wife has been enlisted to edit videotape, or your daughter or something, and they may have varying levels of skill in doing it. This is why we have advertising agencies. And this is why we have advertising people, and this is why we separate advertising from so-called marketing, because advertising helps people make decisions about how they want to promote their businesses that will be a little bit more effective than something that you come up with. You wouldn't hire yourself to be an attorney, because you would be a fool if you were sued in your business. You wouldn't hire yourself to do surgery or to set a broken foot, because you would go to somebody that knows how to do that. Why is advertising different from that? And this is the problem with all of these people making advice or creating advice for quote-unquote small businesses. In conclusion, also, I want to make a comment about the bloom being off the rose with social media. And social media, like, in fact, YouTube is a social media. And this is for all of us nomads that get really excited because we get 15,000 views from our YouTube channel, keeping in mind that companies like NBC News, if they don't get 1 million views for a video, generally speaking, within a week or 3 or 4 days, they will take the video down, just because it doesn't, they know it's not performing. So 1 million views or 2 million or 3 million views is really the target. 15,000, I would say if you're getting 15,000 views per video, that's great. And if you have 10,000 or 100,000 subscribers, that's great. It seems like a lot, and it is a lot by my standards, but it isn't a lot by YouTube monetary compensation standards, and it isn't a lot by any measure today when we look at these gigantic boxcar numbers that can be generated with social media. And I go back to the guy giving me advice about whether or not I should monetize my YouTube channel at the grocery store. That tells me that it's probably not as new as we think it is. YouTube is well over 10 years now, and that's ancient in the social media world. And with AI and lots of other introductory ideas coming out, and not the least of which is TikTok or some of these other types of social media that are available, I just get the feeling that social media, in terms of user experience, in terms of information, in terms of a lot of things, just isn't what it was when it was brand new. So I would just throw that out and offer that as well. And as far as monetizing is concerned, I certainly am open to working with people who want to advertise nationally consumed products on this YouTube channel. I won't do any YouTube advertising for local businesses here, because I think it's, this is a YouTube channel is broad and wide, and the only reason I do local advertising in my podcast is I still have a lot of podcast listeners in Minnesota because I was on the radio back there, but we're fast approaching the time when I'm going to start working with the national advertisers specifically instead of local advertisers. So there's lots of ways to monetize that doesn't include monetizing. Also, I'm not sure people really understand what they need to do to really grow a channel. It requires an awful lot of attention, and it requires posting an awful lot. And you may not have as much to say as you think you do. I certainly don't. I come up with and reject several ideas a day for podcasts and videos, and make decisions about them based on whether or not I think they're going to work here or they're going to work on the YouTube channel. So for me to post every day, I don't think would be a real good idea. I usually post when I put a podcast up. So if you want your podcast or your YouTube video or whatever it is that you call this to grow on YouTube, you end up having to post every day. And out here especially, that's when we get into stuff that's really disposable and almost unlistenable, because it's just, I got to post something, so I'm going to go, drive around and look at campsites, or I'm going to do this or do that in other words, you're chasing viewers, you're chasing subscribers, and I'm not going to get into that game. There's a guy out there who's been out for years, that Gary Vanderchuk or whatever his name is. I love him. I don't watch his stuff as much as I used to, but I remember him talking to this little girl who had a YouTube channel at some event, and she said, what should I do? And he said, well, here's the thing. You have an advantage that other people don't have, which is time. And you should just post. Don't worry about how many viewers you have. Don't worry about how many fans you have. Don't worry about how many subscribers you have. Just do your thing and do your own thing, and don't play the game of chasing subscribers, and let time do its work. Yes, you could build a tribe. But then you would have built a tribe, and now you're kind of trapped by the tribe. I closed that podcast with the song "Fame" by David Bowie and John Lennon, because it's a great way to focus the thinking of a guy or a woman, let's say, who is running a small business in a small community, who becomes very enamored of the quote-unquote fame and notoriety that comes from this vast YouTube channel thing, where you get over the moon about 300 or 400 views or 300 or 400 responses on your Facebook page, but really it's not anything of consequence in the grand scheme of things. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying you fool. I admire people to put themselves out there. It's not that at all. It's just what are some of the other opportunities available in the market, let's say here in Quartzsite, that a person could do, that they could spend their time on, that they would be able to make more money, and it wouldn't be the time sink that doing your own media. You're now in the media business. It wouldn't be the same time sink that being in the media business would necessarily be. I know it's complicated. I hope it's not too boring, but I think we're going to enter an age here relatively soon where we're going to see that social media, YouTube included, and other variants of the same, are going to have to adjust what they do to be more than just posting stimuli, which, in other words, content, and getting comments, and then basing an algorithm to deliver content based on comments and likes and shares and other stuff that people watch or visit on the same channel. I don't know. I'm not in that business, but I think we're reaching the point when people are giving you advice in grocery stores about your YouTube channel. I think we're reaching a point where we're kind of at the peak, and we all know what happens when you're at the peak. You have to go back down the other side of the mountain. So, yeah, check out the podcast at thebobdavispodcast.com or on iTunes, Spotify, what else? Google Podcasts. Audible. You can actually, if you have Alexa, you can actually just say, hey, play the Bob Davis podcasts, and they should be able to find it. Alexa should be able to find it. Any place you find podcasts, you're going to find the Bob Davis podcast. Podbean, a lot of these podcast aggregators just take the feed. And my first love is audio for a lot of reasons. So video is a secondary thing for me. And it's just another thing to do out here in this beautiful landscape called Quartzsite, Arizona, or Arizona in general. The sun feels so good against my skin. It's just amazing. And it never gets old. So thanks for viewing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing and doing all the things. Bye-bye.